G'day and welcome to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. Today we're diving into the second Defender episode. We're talking mid-prices. Player a little bit cheaper, a little bit of risk, a little bit of reward. Let's go!
Hodge has done it from nowhere. Busting the goal from inside the centre. Sheed from the boundary. Dusty. Oh, yeah! Yes! You're a magician. Petrarca. The legend becomes immortal.
G'day and welcome again to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Casey, and you can find me on Twitter at Ball Boys Fantasy, and I am joined once again by the reigning, defending, premiership winning team, coach of the Oxlongs, Luke Rogerson. How are you, mate?
Good, and it is 2 days later. We just happened to be wearing the same clothes as last episode.
I live in this shirt. This is the only shirt I own.
We wouldn't dare record 2 podcasts back to back.
No, that's not how we operate here. All the up-to-date, most recent information on today's podcast. We're talking defenders again for the second time this week, and we're talking mid-prices. If you missed our premium defenders, please go back.
Don't miss it.
It was incredible.
Some of your best work, actually.
I think it was our best podcast ever. You don't want to be going into this podcast without that one up your sleeve. So go and check that one out. Give it a like. Give it a 5-star rating and review. We're talking mid-prices. Now, mid-pricer, we had to draw the line somewhere in terms of like, okay, this is a mid-pricer, this is a premium.
You're big into the lines too, so
line in the sand.
Yeah.
The first group of players we're actually going to talk about starts with Kane Farrell, who probably is more of a premium, I would argue, than a mid-pricer, but potential mid-pricer there. But the defensive line of Port Adelaide, and I've got 3 players here that you could potentially make an argument for seeing the Dan Houston bump. Kane Farrell, Logan Evans, and Ryan Burton are probably the 3 players that you could twist my arm into saying one of those guys is going to be worthy of a selection. The question is who? Or do they all just get a little bump? Like, how do we see this playing with, obviously, Dan Houston now over in Collingwood?
I think it could be by committee. When I was looking at this earlier this morning, I thought the exact same thing as you. There's going to be points available somewhere, but the problem is if the 3 of them split the points, it doesn't make enough of a difference for us. Like, Farrell needs to go mid-90s, I would say, to be anything for us.
Low mid-90s,
Those other guys have a little bit more wiggle room. They could do sort of something in the mid-80s, and I think we'd be happy with it. But I do think that this one might just be by committee. If you made me pick one that I kind of, if I was the coach of Port Adelaide, who would I like to see get a bit more of the ball in the hands? I actually really like what I saw from Logan Evans.
I think I'm leaning that way too.
At the end of last year. Kane Farrell's an elite kick. He can kick the ball 60 metres left foot, impeccable. No problems with that. But I liked the composure that I saw from Evans, and I think there could be a case to say that maybe they try and get the ball in his hands more. Am I confident enough to lock it in 6th of January? No, sir.
Yeah, no, I think I'm about there too. I think obviously just by the nature of being priced cheaper, someone like a Logan Evans just has more upside. It's hard to say, Kane Farrell, he's going to be this 90+ averaging defender when Dan Houston was just that. And I see Dan Houston just as like a head and shoulders just better player than like a Farrell.
He's a 2-time All-Australian.
He's a great player. And even he usually only managed like a low 90s average at that Port Adelaide team. But there is a world I could see that happen. I just don't see it likely. But Logan Evans priced at, what is he priced at? 69.70. Where do we think he could go? And what do we need him to average? Like, it is that awkward price bracket again. It's like, okay, he probably needs to go, 85 for a second-year player who's picked up. Was he mid-season draft? I think he was.
Rings a bell.
Yeah.
The probably question that I have back to you as well is, yes, we can estimate what he needs to go to be value, but if it doesn't go right, where do you go?
Yeah, and the defensive line is hard to pick at the best of times, so
that's kind of the issue with players priced in that bracket is you're too far off turning him into a premium straight away if it goes to shit.
Yeah.
But what are you going down to? If you go down to a rookie from a guy priced there, that's just an immense amount of cash that you're probably stockpiling. It's very awkward.
The cheapest guy of the three is actually Ryan Burton. He's at 673,000. He is priced at 65.5. Now, it's a very, very small sample size.
Yeah.
Because there was 2 games in the season where Dan Houston didn't play. Now, also in those 2 games, Kane Farrell didn't play either. But he averaged 85.7 in those games, which is 21.3 points better without Dan Houston. That would get it done. That would be a good enough pick. I just don't... Sorry, it was 3 games. I just don't trust the sample size enough.
Too small.
And obviously, you didn't have Kane Farrell in 2 of those games as well. So it's not enough for me to hang my hat and say, he's an 85-plus guy. Because I need more assurance that it's going to happen that way. But I am going to be watching this situation closely, because if there is someone that steps head and shoulders above everyone else, I'll be paying attention, because they have a good run to the start of the season. We talked about that in our previous podcast on the premiums, and another reason for you guys to go check it out. I'm telling you, it's a barn burner. But they have a good run, and there's obvious points gap left there by Dan Houston. They didn't replace him with anyone, did they?
No, not to. I mean, they got Lukosius. He won't play,
but he's
play
like
forward.
sort of key forward, yeah.
From memory, no.
Yeah.
Did they pick up Ratkins?
He won't play.
No, he won't. But I think, yeah. You're not going to play those 4 guys, and Ratkins is the first one that wouldn't play. I think this is one where we defer to Port Adelaide fans and get more insight from them.
If you are a Port Adelaide fan and you have like a strong opinion saying like Ryan Burton's going to be the guy, Kane Farrell's going to go 90 plus, let us know down in the comment section below. We would love to hear it, because we, not fully across the Port Adelaide halfbacks. Obviously, they haven't been super fantasy relevant in previous years, but I'll be watching them closely in the preseason this year. All right, who we got next?
Matty Roberts, we want to talk about from the Swans. There's a few things going on at the Swans, and Roberts
New
is
coach is one.
New coach is one thing that we have. We also have sort of the more long-term return of Callum Mills and where he kind of fits into everything. But Matt Roberts is one where he had an interesting season last year, because his season was very much in parts where he was either playing a different role, he was getting a vest, he was playing without certain players, and his stats kind of varied greatly depending on what that was. So in the 13 games that he had with greater than 80% time on ground, he averaged 94. So the time on ground thing, I think it unlocks something for him.
Yeah, so his season time on ground is 73%, but there's a few vests and stuff like that.
Well,
this is impact that.
Yeah, well, excluding, if I take away, if I go to games where he had less than 80% time on ground, but I excluded the vest games, he averaged 60.
Ooh, okay, yeah, pretty gross.
So, and it was a fine line. It was even when he was going to like 81% versus 79%. It just seemed to be one of those ones where it worked out. So, never trust me on the stats. Go check them yourself. But it's a fair discrepancy.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those times, like you get this correlation causation thing. Maybe he was playing shit. That's why he got yanked off the field a bit more and things like that.
Big stats guy, mate.
But
correlation causation.
Yeah, big stats guy. Just call me Popelski. But he seems to take that role off like a Jake Lloyd, for example, who's been the guy the last few seasons. Callum Mills is an interesting part of this. Well, do you think it matters where he plays as to what Roberts does?
So there's a patch at the end of the season where Roberts goes nuts. He goes really well. That was without Justin McInerney. So Justin McInerney got injured. I think that's more of a key, because you know what ridiculous or weird stat that I found that I thought was weird anyway was that Roberts was actually the player at Sydney that got the biggest bump with Callum Mills coming back into the side.
Oh.
So, which I thought was interesting, because Mills wasn't playing CBAs. So he was playing across half back. And Roberts scoring in that game, again, check me on DFS. You don't want to trust me.
We trust you, mate. We trust you.
But Roberts actually got the bump there. But see, again, it's hard to know whether that was just because that coincided with McInerney getting injured.
Yeah. And so McInerney's back this year, right? Am I saying he's not? It wasn't a long-term injury.
No, I don't believe so.
I have to do my research, but so there's obviously a play going out that's benefited him. Does that artificially inflate those stats? Could do. He also is a guy that he got a fair chunk of the kick-ins. The kick-ins definitely seem to rise the latter half of the season. I see him holding that for the most part. I think they like him taking those kick-ins. I think if
See,
he's priced at
75,
again, what do we need him to go? It's that it is an awkward price. Plus, he has the round 3 bye, so there's a bit of an uphill battle from that perspective.
This whole dynamic is a wait and watch for me. I'm excited to see how it pans out because not only is he a guy that we're looking at, but spoiler alert, coming up, we're going to talk about his teammates. So it's very much an interesting watch to see who, especially with a new coach, to see who that new coach wants to trust with the ball in hand.
Yeah, I think for me at this stage, it's an uphill battle to see myself starting a Matt Roberts because of the buy round he's in and the other options in that buy round and just the awkwardness of his price range and what you'd expect him to go. I just haven't seen it yet. Plus the fact that obviously his good games came with a key player out of the side and we expect that player to be back in. Again, I could be talking out of my arse here, and if there's a Sydney fan saying,
"Fuck you, Mitch,"
Justin McInerney is done for the season, or he's now a VFL player or something like that, let me know. I would have expected him to be there, but I'm not fully across that. So
have a look at this. So with Justin McInerney, 63. Without Justin McInerney, 107.
107.
But then also, this part's the weird part to me, is with and without Callum Mills, he's at the opposite end. So with Callum Mills, 98. Without Callum Mills, 64.
There you go.
But I think it just coincides with the McInerney thing.
Yeah, they kind of just blend together to the same degree.
An interesting one.
Very interesting. Well, let's talk about a teammate then.
Yeah.
Callum Mills.
What a segue.
Yeah, what a segue. Now, he is a gun. Let's just throw it out there.
Yeah.
I've got a little bit of bad taste in my mouth. I traded him in for his 3 a couple of years ago, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy these last couple of seasons. He was playing games last year. Am I right in saying he played, 6 games last season?
Yeah, it was just at the back end.
Yeah, just at the back end, 6 games last year. But you wouldn't by any means say that he had much continuity or anything like that. So he's a player that we've seen him average back-to-back 111s in the past. Do we think... Well, first of all, what role do we think he's going to play walking to the team? I think that's a very fascinating conversation.
It is a fascinating conversation, and I think you would agree with me in saying that we probably wouldn't even be entertaining this as much if it wasn't for a change of coach. Because it's kind of... In the last couple of years... Well, in the last couple of years, Longmire, I think, had pretty much shown his cards that Callum Mills was going to be a defender, and he liked him in that role. But the other thing that I think has changed is, between when Mills was dominating and now, is Isaac Heaney. So in 2021-22,
it's a different midfield.
The Sydney midfield's Parker, Mills, Kennedy, Warner, Rowbottom. That's 2021.
Yep.
Now the midfields, Heaney, Rowbottom and Warner are now taken more of a step than they were back then, and Errol Goulden playing out there on the wing. So after what Heaney did last year, Callum Mills is not taking Isaac Heaney's CBAs.
No.
If I'm the coach. Rowbottom, Warner, no.
I think they're
Rowbottom,
vital.
Warner, they give them more bounce.
Yeah.
Yes, Goulden's playing on the wing. Does that mean that Callum Mills, at best, is the 4th midfielder? And then what percentage CBAs does he get in that role if they choose to play him in that role?
The thing about Callum Mills, though, is he doesn't need a 70+% midfield time to be a gun. In 2022, he averaged 56% CBAs and averaged 109.
Do you think he gets that?
I think there's a world he gets that. 56%. I think he and Errol could both be 50-50. If you have like an 80% Isaac Heaney, you've got a 70% Warner, 70% Rowbottom. I think there's enough for 2 guys to split like that 4th position, assuming that no one else goes through there. Now, sometimes they like to run through Papley. Yeah. They sometimes like to run through just random guys through there. But you've got a new coach now, so there's that different element. So
that's why I'm saying I wouldn't entertain it if it was the other way around.
The good news is he doesn't have to go 109.
Yes.
So the good news is he's priced at, 77 or something like that. I want to get this right. He's priced at 74. So he only needs to go 90 plus, I think. And in the games where he, in non-affected injury games, where he's getting less than 40% CBAs, which I think is, I think that's conservative. He's averaged 85 in the last 2 seasons. So even prior to his 109 average, there's a 13-game sample size. When he's getting more than 40% CBAs in the last 2 years, he's averaged 92. So he's obviously been a far cry away, but I think 92 gets it done. I think that's about a median outcome. Would you say? Like, if he comes out and averages 92, where he's playing a little bit of wing, a little bit of mid, inside mid, that gets it done? Or
I think it does get it done on the line that we're talking about as well. I'm playing devil's advocate. He's at the Oxons at the minute. It just the 2023 season is the one that worries me a little bit, because if it was just the 2024, okay, injury hampered, comes back for 6 games, plays defense, whatever. But the 2023 one is the one that worries me there, because there was enough there to suggest that whether it was just the head coach or whether it was the club saw him in a very specific role for the team. Sydney have an embarrassment of riches in terms of gun midfielders as well.
Yeah, they do. It's a much better side than when he was their go-to guy.
Yeah.
He did score that 155 points in the final round in 2023. And at the time when I saw him do that, I said, I don't care what happens in the preseason next year. He's going to start in my side.
And then he went
and obviously he was
broke
injured.
His hand, didn't he?
Yeah, he did some dumb shit.
Throwing a toy to his dog or something.
Yeah, something weird. It was a weird injury. So there is still the ability for him to go massive. He's a guy that ticks all the boxes. He's like that Josh Dunkley type where he gets his marks, he gets his tackles. No one's ever going to tag him. If he's left in the right role, he can rack. He can really be a game changer when it comes to fantasy. The role just could be anything. It really could be a lot of different things. At this stage, I would predict him to be 50-50 wing inside. So that might make him a 40% CBA player. When he's not in inside, he's playing on a wing. That would be my guess. But if he's playing more defense, I don't think he scores as good on the defense as he does in those other lines.
Especially if he goes back to be that extra behind the ball type role
that floating
that we've
defender.
seen previously. Yeah, there were portions where he was killing it in years gone by, and then you'd see them just break glass in case of emergency, and your whole...
The new coach does unlock a lot of these things, though. So obviously, big watch in the preseason. I do think he's obviously in a lot of teams, but I do think we do need to watch this, right? I don't think it's like we just lock him in and it's like throw away the keys, like just forget about it. He's in that horrible buy round 3. He's 37% owned, so he's popular. I think there is a world where maybe he's not a good pick, but he just has so much upside.
He does
at this point. So
you mentioned the round 3 bye, and we've got 3 guys in succession here.
We do.
That have that round 3 bye. So we'll talk about Harry Perryman now. I listened to a podcast. I can't recall. It might have been the Fantasy Fanatics, but sometimes when you have a guy that comes from, not one of those big Melbourne clubs, there may be a bit of an unknown commodity. Do you think that Harry Perryman is?
See, I don't know too much about Harry Perryman in terms of like... In terms of like what he does, like I haven't watched him very closely, because I watched plenty of GWS games. That's where he's from, right? He doesn't like stand out to me very much. So he's never really been a guy I've sort of considered to be a good dominant fantasy player. But I've done a little digging in the games. Like I think in 2022 and 23, he played some midfield games. So when he played 30% or more CBAs, he averaged 88.4, which was an 11-game sample size on 63.9% CBAs. So that's a fair chunk, 63%, averaging 88. That doesn't strike me as a player who I'm going to be scrambling to get when you're in that buy round. And I don't, do we expect him to be a 60+% midfielder at Collingwood? They typically like to share it around, outside of Dacos, a little bit more than other teams.
And Pendles came out and said recently that with the acquisitions of Perryman and Houston as well, that there would be a little bit of a carousel kind of going through halfback as well. So I'm not, expecting Perryman to suddenly leapfrog Dacos, Degoe, even obviously Pendlebury, Jack Chris spent a little bit of time in there at stages last year. I'm just not expecting that to happen. And like you said, even I've got the similar stat here, greater than 40% CBAs in that little window, 85. It's not enough for me to get excited about it. And based on Collingwood's scoring, I mentioned it in our previous...
Yeah, and that's at GWS, where they've been a high-scoring team.
Friendly scoring team. So he'd have to even be of interest to us, he'd have to catapult into the top 4 scorers at the club when we expect guys like Dacos, Cameron. Now people are expecting Houston at Canterbury.
I thought you were just counting Nick Dacos as enough for 2, but there's actually 2 there's 2 Dacoses there. I was like, yeah, Nick Dacos is very good. But yes, his brother is there as well. I can see, again, it's kind of like that new club, like you instantly, you want to do the research, you go, something's different here, here's a new situation. It's another one of those uphill battle players to enter my team. So
you don't discount it when they change club, but I mean, we get a free look.
We do get a free look, yeah. But again, the thing with Dan Houston not being there, are you going to get a real representation of what he's going to do with that first game? So maybe he plays more half back in the round 0 game, and then Dan Houston comes back, maybe moves more into the midfield, and maybe that's where he tears it up. Or it's a bit murky and it puts me off a little bit. So, but
I wouldn't want him to be my pod. But if suddenly there's an influx of interest, and you could go,
Harry Perriman just tidal wave of enthusiastic fans coming in. I don't know if he's going to be the player that really driven wrong. This next guy here, another round 3. A lot of us had him in our teams last year, and then the worst injury in round 0 happens. He tears his ACL, which again, we should start there. You tear your ACL in round 0. This is not a Bailey Smith tearing his ACL in like December. This is like a March ACL. Is he are we sure he's going to be there? And how cautious are Brisbane going to be with a Kadeem Coleman when they're coming off the back of a premiership? Yeah,
there's no reason for them to be aggressive and bring him back quick. And I mean, that question is kind of irrelevant, isn't it? Because they make our decision for us. If he's not playing, we won't pick him. But
yes,
if he is playing, that to me is enough of a declaration to say he's fully fit because of the fact that they wouldn't risk him.
Yeah.
So
I see your point. Yeah.
So let's just have that conversation. Let's assume he's playing. So if he's playing, he's in. Last year for me, not so much. But this year,
he's way cheaper.
He's so cheap.
He's 30% cheaper than what he was last year.
He's priced at like mid-50s, isn't he?
Yeah, he's very cheap. This is the Zach Williams of last year, I think. Now Zach Williams ultimately was a bit of a disappointment.
Yeah.
Mostly a lot of because they moved him around a lot. They moved Zach Williams, and Zach Williams I don't think is quite as talented as a Kadeem Coleman is.
He's not in the same realm.
So I'm more confident in a Kadeem Coleman. However, let's play the game. What's he have to score in round 0 to start, or what's he have to score for you to fade him? Like what's a dirty enough score to go? Oh, actually. Do I really want that to start as cash gen and things like that?
Maybe anything with the 6 in front of it. The thing that
So he scores 70 and you're happy?
The thing that
you're not probably happy, but...
It's more of a look and see as well, because you think about it this way. If you're Brisbane, you saw what Zorko did last year. That's not what Brisbane want. It worked for them last year. That's fine. But Brisbane don't want Dane Zorko to be doing that. They want Kitty Coleman to be doing that for the future. Would you agree with that? I know they won a premiership, so don't jump on me like I'm not saying I'm not saying Dane Zorko's no good, but I'm just saying looking forward to the future. Yes. It's in Brisbane's best interest if Kitty Coleman's having 30 touches and 10 marks off the back line.
I agree with you. The issue is we need Kitty Coleman firing from round 1. Like he's a mid-price. I don't expect him to be a player that sticks around in our side all season. So we want him to make cash.
Yeah.
We want him to do it quickly. So he needs to hit the ground running.
If he plays,
and I don't know if Brisbane are going to be like, all right, All-Australian defender, premiership team, like move aside. They might eventually do that maybe when the season goes on. And
you think that you're saying that Zorko will just continue to?
I think it's more likely the first few rounds than later, because there's just that familiarity. Like there's no rush to kind of move things along, especially when you're coming off the back of a premiership.
I think there's more of a discussion to be had about like managing game time or something like that, because then that becomes a real discussion where people could fall into a trap. But it's too early to have that conversation.
Yeah, I think. Look, he's so cheap. He's the obviously you get the round 0 look, which makes things a lot clearer.
Yeah.
I think
What's
75.
Okay.
5 points more.
You're not going to stick to
maybe 70. I don't know. Well, I'll see how he looks if there's game time management.
I'll see how he looks. Just find a photo of him, mate.
Yeah.
He always looks good.
He looks good. Yeah, there he goes. Great moustache.
Can I get a photo of his knees?
Yeah, how's that looking? But first of all, I would love to see him play in the preseason games. like the practice matches, because that would really tell me, okay, they're really confident.
Really get a good look at him.
Just love
well, mate, it's Brisbane. We could go and travel and get the closest look possible.
We should get some eyes on him. We should go watch the track.
Yeah, we could actually.
Yeah.
If you wanted close eyes, you could probably streak on, just get real close to him. How you feeling, mate? He's like, get the fuck away from me.
I don't know if I'd outrun the security guards over there. It is pretty hot, so maybe someone else can do that for us. Kitty Coleman. I think it's a fairly easy player to have on your side right now, but maybe just some contingency plans. Say he's not 100% ready, or he stinks it up in round 0, because I could see that as a real possibility, like a Zach Williams does. And some people faded Zach Williams last year, and I think they were the better for it. So I can kind of see Kitty in a similar kind of vein.
I reckon he will be purring by round 0.
Stretch, but okay.
Kitty sounds like...
Speaking of purring...
Okay.
Let's go to Geelong.
Oh, nice. That was an oop. I just didn't realise
Let's go to Geelong, and we're talking De Koning.
Oh.
Not Tom.
I thought you'd done a typo on here until I realised what you're
We're not talking Tom De Koning.
Yeah.
We're talking his brother, Sam De Koning, which, again, I think this is going to be a very unique pick. I don't actually expect it to be one that comes off. But let's have the conversation, because come pre-season, if we see Sam De Koning playing as a ruckman, I think there's some very serious upside here. He is owned in 1.1% of teams right now.
Yeah.
He's 564K, so just a smidge over Kadeen Coleman. Obviously the same buy round with that round 3. But he had a patch there where he was playing as a ruckman, and in that time he averaged 87 points on 78% time on ground. Just like his brother, he can score as a ruckman. Now, Geelong is not a team known for their ruck talent. You've got the ageless wonder in Mark Blitzarves there.
He's a gun. I love that guy.
And, who else? Like, who's Conway
getting around.
Reece Stanley, is he still there? Surely he's gone by now. Like, are we still rolling with Reece Stanley?
Jeez, Rich is just retiring people, booting people.
There's no Max Gawn in front of him. Like, it's not unreasonable to believe that Sam De Koning could make that position his own. He's 24 years old. Maybe it's a little young. Maybe we're a year early. But what if we see him playing ruck in the preseason games? Does that get you interested?
Yeah, the mid-80s average that you mentioned in that little patch as a ruckman, when you do have a look at that, there's games of 60, 100, 60, 100.
He alternates, he does.
Even within that, there's uncertainty. I think it's a little bit...
yes, you're right.
Not naive, but to look at it and go, mid-80s fucking new beauty. Because he's so cheap and because he is a defender currently... there's no saying never, I think.
Yeah. I think that's a good attitude to have.
He's undersized, but I think we noted, like, when he went into the ruck, you felt like he was going to get physically dominated. So I'll be interested to see if they have...
think he did. I mean, he was a good matchup for other rucks.
Yeah, his hit out data wouldn't be great.
I don't think his ruck contests...
But if they have him...
No, it wasn't the best.
Yeah, so if they have him pegged in that role, then he's going to have done a heap of beach weights over the summer.
Yeah.
And he might be ready to cuddle with ex-Airy.
The thing that interests me, though, is they gave him a red-hot crack. Like, he wasn't just tested in there. The games he threw in there, 80% CBAs, 72%, 86%, 81%, 95%. Like, they had a genuine look at him in there. And obviously, maybe it's a bad sign that they went away from it.
Yeah.
But obviously, they didn't do much in the finals. So
maybe they saw Carlton's win-loss record with his brother.
Yeah, maybe. I mean... The De Koning family, there's something to it. So all I wanted to do with the mention of Sam De Koning is just put his name out there on the radar. If you see him in the ruck,
just in case it goes well, you can claim it.
And then I'll say, told you so.
And if it doesn't go well, we'll trim the video.
You've never heard it. It's not a thing. But maybe just a little draft guy, because he'll go undrafted. If you pick him up and just stash him on your bench, you got maybe a deeper bench, and all of a sudden he's playing ruck, you've got this guy who I think can average 80, 85, maybe even 90 if he goes absolute gangbusters. But yeah, there you go. Any other mid-prices that you think we've left off?
Not off the top, mate.
I'm
sure we've missed people.
I'm sure there is. If there is someone that you're
let us
screaming at your phone or your laptop or wherever you're watching or listening to this podcast, let us know in the comment section over on YouTube. We aren't covering the rookies because we don't know our ass from elbows when it comes to these rookie players. So we'll cover the rookies a little bit closer to the season when we have some more actual data from preseason games and some talk from the clubs, some things like that. So we're going to save that until we know a little bit more. And then next week, we're going to be going through the midfielders premiums and the midfielders mid prices. I will be doing another solo podcast talking about draft later this week, where I will be covering the tiers of my rankings. I'm going to go, let's go 40 deep on the...
go deep, mate.
All right, we'll go 50.
Oh, okay,
we'll go
yeah.
50.
Well, I thought 40 was deep.
No, we'll go top 50. Top 50 defenders, but also breaking up into tiers. So where I see them, where I see like players being closely ranked, where I see some distance between certain players, which I think is an important thing when it comes to draft.
Your draft podcast was good the other day. I had a listen, and I thought there was some good insights in there, and a couple of spicy picks in there too.
Yeah. And if you're not really interested in draft, like you might still be able to watch those videos and get some classic information, because I'm putting my projections and things like that, like. In the top picks, I picked Andrew Brayshaw, so that lets you know I'm thinking, okay, he's a bit underpriced and things like that. So
hang on a second.
So
a couple of juicy tidbits.
So yes, it will give you some information, and I think there's some value. And if you've never played draft before, I would encourage you, if you can, get involved. It's fun. You do the draft. There's not a whole bunch of thinking like classic throughout the season. Maybe you have to do some waiver wire moves and stuff like that, but you do a nice fun draft, and then it's a good way to spend a weekend with your mates. All right, we'll call it there.
Sounds good. Let's do it, mate.
All right, we'll see you guys next time. Like, subscribe, 5-star rating review. Bye.
Oh, shit.